Why is the Coca-Cola company one of the most successful companies of all time? If you had to give 3 reasons, and 3 reasons only, as to why this company now sells many millions of these little cans across the globe, what would those 3 reasons be? Charlie Munger, in chapter 4 of this book, attempts to explain why Coca-Cola, in its 140-year history, has been so successful. He also points out that many professors would not be able to give a full, satisfactory answer to that question, because they have tended to overlook areas, subjects outside of the sphere of economics. So they haven't, or they tend not to give psychological factors, psychological tendencies, due weight. So for example, the caffeine and the sugar in Coca-Cola has to be a part of the explanation as to why the drink is so successful. It tastes good. We can simply use Occam's razor, Einstein's quote, things should be explained in the simplest possible terms, but no simpler. You know, Coca-Cola is a nice tasting beverage. Also, being carbonated is fizzy, and so has the taste of a higher class product. Champagne, you often get the bubbles when you drink champagne, and perhaps Coca-Cola is imitative of high quality champagne. But various marketing strategies and techniques over the decades have also contributed to the success of Coca-Cola. So being associated with Christmas, for example, you know, every year you see Santa Claus on the TV drinking a bottle of Coca-Cola. Their TV adverts and posters in the past have included attractive women, many famous performances of Elvis Presley. I remember seeing a performance of Unchained Melody, I think it was, by Elvis Presley. You can watch it online. You know, he's sitting there playing the piano with Coca-Cola cups on the piano, and again, that is having the effect, subconsciously, in many cases, of associating the King of Rock, rebelliousness, youth, success, greatness, excellence, with the product. So it's associating those ideas in our minds, and with Santa Claus, you know, the holiday spirit, generosity, goodwill, the warm feeling we often get during the holiday season, you know, all of those things are being combined in our heads because of very clever, very successful marketing. An economics professor might be more inclined to give reasons to do with the distribution facilities and network that Coca-Cola has built up across the decades. So the fact that it has factories where it can easily bottle and can the liquid in all over the world. Another excellent chapter where I think most of the value comes from is in the last chapter, where Charlie Munger lists 25 potential flaws of judgment, 25 potential errors of judgment. These are things which can affect our ability to see the wood through the trees. I'm standing here in a wood, okay? But cognitive biases, Daniel Kahneman often speaks about heuristics. If you're looking for a book on fallacies and of how human judgment, human perception can be affected by various tendencies, then 2 books by Daniel Kahneman, that I would greatly recommend would be these two. These are by far the two best books I've read on this subject. This one would be a good one to start with. It was Daniel Kahneman's first book of the two, and then Noyes lists a number of different fallacies. On the topic of influence and marketing and how our behaviour can be manipulated is a strong word, but I think it's a fair word. A great book, one that Charlie Munger recommends and endorses and has given to many members of his own family, would be this one, Influence. So what are these 25 heuristics, potential flaws? So first, let me just say that Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger were very critical of something called efficient market hypothesis. And what this was a popular idea in the 1950s and 1960s, namely that the stock market, the price of the stock market is accurate and is perfect because it is the product of millions of people all contributing, either they're positive or pessimistic buyers or sellers. And so the net result is to make the stock price at any particular given time accurate. But Charlie Munger disputes this. He says this is rubbish, and he points at 25 causes of irrationality. That's probably the best way to think about it. So one tendency he has listed is something called inconsistency avoidance. And I've seen this in my own life with people I've observed. What this is many people have expectations, they have an opinion, they have a belief, they have a view, and they make the world conform to their expectations. So you can see this even in football matches where, let's say it's Manchester United versus Tottenham. Manchester United fans and Tottenham fans are looking at exactly the same thing. Could even be something that can be objectively decided. Did the ball cross the line, yes or no? This tendency, inconsistency avoidance, is so strong that it can actually affect our perception, the way we see the world, because people on one side who want a goal to be declared, wants the goal to stand, they will have a view and they'll see it differently. Even though the ball is where it is and the line is where it is, their vision, what they have in their heads, their picture of reality will be different, because they will, first of all, there's another tendency called pain aversion, where we avoid solutions, we avoid things which we don't want to be true, and we tend to see the world the way we want to see the world. So anything that's going to cause us pain, in the book, Charlie Munger talks about a lady who was told that her son, during the Second World War, he was a pilot, didn't come back. She refused to believe that he died, and for many years, because it was painful for her to admit that probably he was just, he died in battle. For years, she lived in a state of denial. So because that was A or B, but because A was causing her pain, she went to B, and so she still maintains the belief that he was out there somewhere. But if somebody believes something to be true, a good example of this might be the captain on the Titanic. When one of the officers told him, we've been receiving messages that there are icebergs out there, and these conditions, the ocean is very still, it's going to make spotting icebergs quite difficult. The captain kind of just dismissed it, just waved it away. And this is an example of inconsistency avoidance. You know, he didn't want to think about the catastrophe that could happen from crashing into an iceberg. So that in his mind, the probability of that happening was diminished. He squashed it, just kind of cast it aside. One, because he didn't want that to happen, it's too painful a thought. Secondly, there's another heuristic, there's another flaw, and that is over-optimism. We have a tendency to overrate ourselves, overvalue our abilities. For example, one study suggests that 90% of Swedish drivers believe themselves to be better than average at driving, which can't possibly be true, but again it speaks to our tendency to overestimate ourselves. That captain didn't want to hear that, and so full steam ahead, let's go, I'm going back to bed. And obviously in retrospect, a very bad decision. If he would have said, well, okay, let's turn the engines down 10%, let's just slow it down a little bit because of the uncertainty, had more doubt. You know, Benjamin Franklin's famous quote, a small hole can sink a great ship. In this case, a medium-sized hole sunk, at the time, I believe, the largest ship in the world. And maybe if the captain was more aware of potential fallacies, and not just the captain, but other members of the team, maybe that's something that could have been avoided. And really one central idea of Charlie Munger is his inclination to invert. Instead of asking what can make someone successful, what factors lead one to success, he would invert that and he would list ways of failing. How can we ensure that we become miserable failures? And his advice would be to avoid problems, pitfalls, and these errors of judgment. To name a few briefly, just to give you a flavour of what he is talking about, another flaw is our tendency to bow down to authority. We have a proclivity to listen to politicians or people that we perceive to be authority figures, and to take what they're saying as being true, and not really questioning it. We have a tendency to kind of obey orders. If, number one, there's another tendency called social proof. If other people are doing something, if many people are doing something, there's something called social proof. In Cialdini's book, that book I showed you, Influence, it was shown, there was a study on the menus of restaurants. If the restaurant's owner simply wrote above one particular option, one particular meal, most popular meal this month, that phrase alone would greatly increase the number of people ordering that meal. This is an example of tapping into social proof. Another tactic that restaurants do, if you notice, watch this next time you're in a restaurant, just before they charge you, they might give you like a little chocolate. They're trying to tap into reciprocation. Because if they give you a chocolate, what are you then going to do? Possibly a little tip, a £5 tip or something like that. So these businesses and these marketing companies are fully aware of Cialdini's book. And the authority principle can have many disastrous consequences if we simply just passively obey without questioning, without having processes in our companies, in the workplace, that can ensure that questioning, criticism, feedback is being taken on board, because these tendencies can have negative consequences. So there are 25 in total. So I'm going to leave you with this video today. There's so much more that one can say about this book. I'll just leave you with a poem by Houseman. which I think summarises the book quite well. The thoughts of others were light and fleeting, of lovers meeting, or luck, or fame. Mine were of trouble, and mine was steady, so I was ready when trouble came. Thanks for watching.